Well, we begin this Nelson Mandela Day broadcast in a metro named after the icon, where Nomusa Pongula will be speaking to opposition parties this morning about their plans for Nelson Mandela Day, as well as how they feel about campaigning in his name. Now, the family of Nelson Mandela have called for the DA to remove an advert that uses the voice of South Africa's former president. Let's go now live to Port Elizabeth. Nomusa Pongula is standing by for us. Nomusa, good morning to you. A hotly contested area of the country at the moment, but still a lot of anger over the use of his name during DA campaigning. What are the people saying there?
Good morning, Peter, and good morning to our viewers at home. Yes, indeed, we are still in Port Elizabeth, in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro Municipality, where it is highly contested. We saw that it has 19 political parties contesting and 22 independent candidates. Well, this morning we are exploring some of the activities that political parties are undergoing in terms of celebrating the Nelson Mandela Day. With me today, I have two mayoral candidates, the DA mayoral candidate, which is Mr. Ethel Trollip, as well as the UDM mayoral candidate, which is Mr. Mongameli Bobani. They are going to share with us some of the things that made them celebrate this particular day. I will start with Mr. Ethel Trollip. Sir, can you kindly share with us and our viewers at home, as the DA, what does the Nelson Mandela Day mean to you? And do you feel that it is okay for political parties to campaign using the name of the icon?
Well, Nelson Mandela Bay is named after Nelson Mandela. Today is Nelson Mandela Day. This whole month is dedicated to our former president. And I think it's absolutely opposite that we dedicate time to his legacy and to remember the great example that he was. That's why we used his voice in one of our TV adverts for this election. The ANC took exception to that, which is very ironic and unusual, because in all other post-liberation African countries, the liberating father or mother has become a national icon. We saw when we buried Mr. Nelson Mandela at Kunu, there were more foreign leaders of foreign countries at his funeral than any other leader ever before in the history of man. So he was an iconic figure. He's a person of the ages. He's recognized internationally, but we're not allowed to recognize him and respect him according to the ANC. Well, we believe that he was an exemplary leader, a very, very good leader who gave good direction to this country for the brief period that he was the leader. So we as a party believe that it is absolutely right that we pay our respects to him.
Just one follow-up question, sir. You spoke about him being an icon, an international icon. Do you think that it is correct for the DA to align perhaps Nelson Mandela with them, or rather Nelson Mandela should be used in general as a whole, South Africa as a whole, but no political party should align their campaign with the icon?
Well, if he's for everybody, then any political party can align with him, because that's what democracy is actually about. And if we have a president that has become iconic, whose vision and values resonate with most South Africans, it's absolutely right that we use him as an example, because we have a president now who's forgotten what Nelson Mandela stood for. So that is why we use him. But also, this is a very special day for us. You know, here we're having a clean-up campaign. Every single ward in the city, the DA is having activities. We're going to old age homes. We're giving people pedicures, manicures, giving them massages, having soup kitchens, taking soup to creches, to let people know that Mr. Mandela, our president, has left a legacy that lives long after he passed on. And that's what we're doing here. And that's why it's so important that we never forget those great leaders who were great examples, and he was one of those leaders.
Thank you so much, Mr. Trollip. Well, Peter, I'm going to now focus on the UDM just to find out that beyond the Nelson Mandela Day, what are some other activities that political parties engage on in making sure that they make sure that the community is a conducive environment to live at? Because people must understand that Nelson Mandela was all about values rather than having to celebrate his life in one day. So what are some of other activities as the UDM that you engage on beyond the Nelson Mandela Day?
Dr. Nelson Mandela, firstly, is an international icon. Dr. Nelson Mandela, our former president, was actually fighting not what is happening today. What is happening today if Dr. Nelson Mandela was alive, the ANC should have been ashamed of a corruption. Dr. Nelson Mandela was fighting for a free society. Dr. Nelson Mandela was not fighting for people to be hungry. Dr. Nelson Mandela was fighting for the eradication of baguette. What is happening in this actually municipality that has been named after him? It's actually a shame. There is corruption. You're having a mayor here. That mayor cannot actually be an example like Dr. Nelson Mandela. He can't go to Sweden. That mayor is having two positions, Dr. Denny Jordan. He's the president of SAFA. He's also in charge of the municipality. If Dr. Nelson Mandela was actually alive today, he could have told him, get out of this municipality, because you can't have two positions. You cannot actually not travel internationally. You must answer about the FIFA scandal. What had happened to the $10 million US? If Dr. Mandela was alive, he could have tell the citizens. The ANC should not defend him and Balula be the spokesperson. And therefore, what the UTM is doing right now, the UTM is also recognizing this day as an international day. We're actually handing out to the people whatever the UTM is having. Hungry people, we are there. On the people that are using the bucket, and we are there to helping those people, because the people are actually hungry. The people need housing. There is nothing. If Dr. Nelson Mandela was actually alive, he could have been ashamed. And also the fact that even the ANC have actually stole his money of the funeral. What kind of an organization that is using his name when these people stole the funeral money of our international icon? This is bad. The ANC should be ashamed. That's why on the 3rd of August, all the voters here in the Nelson Mandela Metro, they will vote them out and the UTM will be in.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Bobani. Well, Peter, there was also Mr. Bobani, the mayoral candidate for the UTM. Well, Peter, it is important to mention that here in Ward 35, it is where the current executive mayor of Nelson Mandela Bay, which is Mr. Denny Jordan, come from. But the ward currently is undergoing a different demarcation process. But most importantly, the expectations are very high in this particular metro, since it is named after the icon. That's all I have for you now, Peter. Back to you in studio.